The paradox of laughter and pain. There is something haunting about laughter. It echoes brightly, fills rooms with warmth, and yet, if you listen closely, it fades into a silence that feels almost too heavy, like an afterthought of joy that didn't quite survive. We love the people who make us laugh. We cling to them, idolize them, quote them. But hidden beneath their jokes, behind every carefully timed smile, there often lies a depth of sadness few will ever see. Why is it that the ones who bring the most joy to others are often the ones fighting the darkest battles within themselves? Why is it that behind the curtain of humor, there exists a storm that refuses to quiet down? The paradox is as old as humanity itself. The idea that humor and sorrow are not opposites but twins, born from the same wound, expressed through different masks. The ancient Greeks understood this. They built entire theaters where comedy and tragedy shared the same stage. Two faces of the same god, Thalia and Melpomene, forever side by side. And through time, this truth never changed. The story of Pagliacci, the opera about a clown forced to perform while his heart shatters, has endured for centuries because it reveals something eternal. Laughter is sometimes the only thing that stands between a human being and collapse. Look closer at the faces of those who made the world laugh. Charlie Chaplin, who turned the horrors of poverty and isolation into timeless comedy. Robin Williams, whose laughter seemed infinite until it wasn't. Jim Carrey, who once said, "I wish people could realize all their dreams and wealth and fame so they could see that it's not the answer." Each of them carried something that comedy could not erase. But maybe that was the point. For them, comedy wasn't just a performance. It was a kind of alchemy, a way to take pain and make it bearable, to turn chaos into rhythm, heartbreak into punchlines. Psychologists call this the tears of a clown paradox, the tendency for individuals who use humor frequently, especially self-deprecating humor, to mask inner distress. It isn't deception in the cruel sense, it's survival. When life becomes unbearable, laughter becomes a form of control. Because if you can joke about it, then it can't completely destroy you. Humor, then, is not the absence of pain. It is pain, transmuted. It's the art of making sense of what cannot be fixed. A person who learns to laugh through suffering does not do so because they are happy. They do so because they must. And society, perhaps unknowingly, rewards them for it. We love the joker, the witty friend, the comedian who makes pain look beautiful. We applaud them, not realizing that applause can sound like thunder to someone already trembling inside. The laughter fades, the lights go out, and what's left is a silence that few can bear. In that silence, the comedian faces the truth they hide from everyone else. The truth that making others laugh does not necessarily mean you have escaped your own sadness. Maybe that's why laughter is such a strange, sacred thing. It's both a bridge and a barrier. It connects us to others while protecting us from ourselves. It is honesty wrapped in disguise, grief disguised as joy. And so, as we explore the lives of the world's funniest people, their triumphs, their darkness, and their truths, we begin to see that the real paradox is not that funny people are sad. It's that they have found a way to make their sadness useful, to turn it into something beautiful, something that gives life to others even as it quietly drains their own. Because behind every punchline, every burst of laughter, every comedic masterpiece, there is something deeply human, something fragile, something fighting to endure. The historical face of the sad clown. Throughout history, laughter has been more than amusement. It has been rebellion, confession, and sometimes a cry for help. Every civilization has had its clowns, jesters, and fools, those strange figures standing between joy and despair, truth, and madness. But if you look closely, their painted smiles have always hidden something ancient: the burden of carrying laughter for others while silencing their own pain. In the grand courts of medieval Europe, jesters wore motley costumes and bells, performing acrobatics, songs, and jokes to amuse kings and queens. They were considered fools, yet paradoxically, they were often the wisest people in the room. The jester could speak truth that would have cost any other person their life. Their humor was a weapon, a disguise for truth wrapped in absurdity. But beneath their license to mock, there was also loneliness. The fool could make everyone laugh, except himself. That same duality carried forward into art and literature. Shakespeare understood it better than anyone. His fools, like the one in King Lear, were not idiots. They were mirrors, reflecting the insanity of power, the absurdity of life. Through humor, they revealed truth. Through laughter, they spoke pain. The fool's wisdom was always laced with sorrow, as if laughter were merely a safer way to scream. The archetype deepened in the centuries that followed. In the world of commedia dell'arte, Italy's masked performers embodied human flaws: the boastful captain, the greedy merchant, the lovesick servant. And among them was the sad clown, the quiet dreamer who made others laugh while suffering silently behind his mask. From these stages came the tragic figure of Pagliacci, immortalized in opera, the clown who must make the world laugh while dying inside. His famous aria still echoes through time: Ridi Pagliaccio sul tuo amore infranto. Laugh, clown, though your heart is broken. As the centuries turned, this figure found new life on the silver screen. The great silent comedians, Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, Harold Lloyd, brought laughter to a world reeling from wars and poverty. Chaplin, in particular, understood the delicate dance between comedy and despair. His little tramp character was a man beaten by the world, but still smiling through it. He once said, "Life is a tragedy when seen in close-up, but a comedy in long shot." That wasn't just a line. It was a philosophy. Comedy has always been the art of the outsider, the perspective of those who feel life's absurdities most sharply. For every laugh, there is awareness. For every joke, a glimpse into something raw and unresolved. The comedian stands at the edge of the crowd, pointing out what others refuse to see, and pays for that awareness with isolation. Even in the 20th century's circus tents, the clown remained a symbol of contradiction, painted joy masking silent sorrow. Behind the exaggerated grin was the reminder that laughter, no matter how bright, is fleeting. The same man who makes the crowd erupt in delight must later wash away his paint and face himself. From jesters to Chaplin, from masks to microphones, the essence remains unchanged. Humor is the language of those who feel too deeply. It is not ignorance of pain, it is intimacy with it. And every era, in its own way, has used laughter as a mirror to hide what it could not confront. The sad clown, then, is not a relic of theater or circus. He is a reflection of the human condition itself, the eternal performer trapped between wanting to heal others and being unable to heal himself. Because the fool, the joker, the clown, they were never mocking life. They were revealing it. They were teaching us that even in despair, the soul will find a way to laugh. The psychology of the comedian's mind. To understand why the funniest people often carry the heaviest sadness, we have to look inward, into the intricate machinery of the human mind. What makes someone seek laughter, not just as a joy, but as a necessity? What drives a person to find humor in the very things that break them? Psychology offers clues. Behind the comedian's impulse to make others laugh lies a complex interplay of pain, perception, and self-preservation. Many who turn to humor do so not from abundance, but from deficit. They've seen the darker corners of life: loss, rejection, alienation, and somewhere in that chaos, they discover a strange alchemy. When you can make people laugh at your pain, the pain loses some of its power. Laughter, in this sense, becomes a kind of armor. Sigmund Freud described humor as a defense mechanism, a way for the ego to protect itself from anxiety or trauma. When life's cruelty cannot be escaped, it can be reinterpreted. A person who can laugh at their suffering reclaims agency over it. They turn victimhood into performance, despair into dialogue. Yet, beneath that transformation lies exhaustion. The comedian's instinct to joke is not always voluntary. It's reflexive, like a scar that never stops aching. Studies have shown that people who frequently use self-deprecating humor often struggle with lower self-esteem and higher rates of depression. It's a subtle self-destruction disguised as charm, a way of controlling how others see your flaws by exposing them first. But there's more than defense at play. There's also sensitivity. Many comedians and humorists score unusually high in empathy and openness, the psychological traits linked to creativity and emotional intelligence. They notice more, feel more, and therefore suffer more. The same mind that crafts witty observations about the absurdity of life also feels the weight of that absurdity more intensely than most. Their jokes are not born from detachment, but from deep, uncomfortable awareness. Carl Jung would have called this the work of the shadow, the hidden part of the self that we deny, repress, or fear. For the comedian, humor becomes a bridge to the shadow, a way to speak truths that would otherwise remain buried. Through laughter, they give voice to pain without naming it. They dance with their darkness in public, hoping that by doing so, it might hurt less in private. This is why comedy so often walks the line between truth and tragedy. The jokes that make us laugh the hardest usually carry a trace of pain, a recognition of something human and flawed. The comedian's art lies in turning that pain into rhythm, timing, and irony. They construct order from chaos, and in doing so, expose their own vulnerability. But that vulnerability comes at a cost. The constant need to be funny, to turn every wound into a punchline, can distort self-perception. If your worth is built on making others laugh, silence can feel like erasure. Applause can feel like oxygen. When the lights go down and the crowd disappears, what remains is often the very emptiness that started it all. Psychologist Rod Martin categorized humor into 4 types: affiliative, connecting; self-enhancing, coping; aggressive, mocking; and self-defeating, self-deprecating. Comedians often master all 4, but it's the self-defeating kind that carries the greatest emotional weight. It's humor as sacrifice, bleeding on stage so the audience doesn't have to. And yet, the paradox deepens. Despite their pain, comedians often display remarkable resilience. Their laughter may be born from sadness, but it is also a testament to survival. Each joke, each performance, is an act of rebellion against despair, a way of saying, I have suffered, but I still choose to laugh. Jim Carrey once described depression as your body saying, I don't want to be this character anymore. For many comedians, the character is both salvation and prison. They wear humor like a mask, one that grants them power, but also distances them from authenticity. Behind that mask is a person who longs to be understood not as a performer, but as human. To make others laugh is, in essence, to give them permission to feel. It's an intimate exchange of vulnerability disguised as entertainment. But for those who live in that role, the question becomes, who gives them permission to feel? The psychology of the comedian's mind, then, is not one of contradiction. It's one of complexity. Humor is not the absence of sadness, it's the language sadness speaks when it no longer wants to cry. The comedian, knowingly or not, translates despair into laughter so that others might understand life's cruelty without collapsing under it. And that, perhaps, is what makes their sadness so profound. Because deep down, every joke, every laugh, every smile hides a single, unspoken truth: the desire to make the world a little lighter than the weight they carry themselves. The modern tragedy, performance, and the age of irony. In earlier times, the comedian's mask was literal: painted faces, stage lights, costumes. Today, the mask is digital. It glows from the screens we stare at, reflects from our curated smiles, our polished words, our filtered lives. The comedian's burden, once confined to the stage, has become a collective condition. We are all performers now, trapped in the theater of constant presentation. Social media has transformed life into an endless act. Every moment must be shareable, every thought crafted for reaction. The line between authenticity and performance blurs until we can no longer tell where the real self ends and the character begins. In this new world, humor has become both currency and armor. We joke about our pain before anyone else can expose it. We post memes about loneliness, depression, and failure, not to trivialize them, but to make them tolerable. Irony has become the language of survival. Sincerity feels too raw, too dangerous. To say, "I'm hurting," invites judgment or pity. To say it through a joke, however, feels safe. We laugh about our anxieties, our political chaos, our existential dread, and in doing so, we convince ourselves we've conquered them. But have we? Or have we simply learned to laugh louder than the silence underneath? The modern world demands positivity, confidence, success, the performance of perpetual happiness. To be sad openly feels like failure, and so, humor becomes the acceptable mask for despair. We joke because crying would break the illusion. We laugh because silence would reveal too much. Nowhere is this more visible than in the stories of modern comedians, their meteoric rise and devastating falls. We've watched laughter icons burn out under the weight of their own performances. Robin Williams, beloved by millions, whose boundless energy seemed infinite, yet whose inner darkness consumed him. Bo Burnham, who turned isolation into art in his special Inside, laying bare the absurdity of performing joy while trapped in loneliness. His words echoed the collective psyche of an age addicted to irony and terrified of sincerity. The comedian's tragedy has become everyone's tragedy. We all curate personas now, our timelines filled with self-aware humor, detached cynicism, and quiet cries for help wrapped in clever captions. The irony that once belonged to artists has infected society itself. We've built an entire culture of laughter designed to hide our fear of meaninglessness. This is the age of irony, where we joke about everything because caring about anything feels naive. Our laughter no longer signals joy. It signals defense. It says, "I understand how broken this is, and if I laugh at it first, it can't hurt me." But this endless irony comes at a price. When everything becomes a joke, nothing feels real. Empathy fades. Sincerity dies. The same humor that once united us now isolates us further, reducing shared pain into entertainment. The screen glows, the audience scrolls, and we keep performing. The applause is replaced by likes and comments, fleeting validations that vanish faster than they appear. In this performative world, even sadness must be aesthetic. Even despair must be relatable. We package our pain, filter our tears, and caption our breakdowns. The mask of the modern clown is now digital, algorithmic, always smiling. even when the eyes behind it are tired. And yet, beneath this irony lies something unmistakably human, the desperate longing to be seen. Our jokes about pain are confessions in disguise. Every meme about depression, every sarcastic quip about failure is a coded message. I'm hurting too, but I don't know how to say it anymore. The tragedy of the modern age is not that we are sad, it's that we no longer know how to be sad honestly. We hide behind humor because sincerity feels unbearable. We turn our suffering into performance because the audience never stops watching. But perhaps, buried in all this irony, there is still a trace of hope. Because the very act of laughing at our pain, even ironically, proves that something inside us refuses to give up. It's the same defiance that fueled the jesters, the clowns, the comedians of old. Even in digital form, it remains the same primal instinct, to take what hurts and turn it into something shareable, understandable, survivable. We are still laughing in the dark, only now the darkness is everywhere, and the stage is infinite. In this endless performance, the question remains, if everyone is wearing the mask, who is left to take it off? The philosophy of suffering and meaning. To understand the sadness behind laughter, we must move beyond psychology, into philosophy. Because at its core, humor is not just an emotional reflex, it's a response to the absurdity of existence itself. From the beginning, philosophers have wrestled with suffering. Some tried to explain it, others to transcend it. But perhaps no one understood it quite like Friedrich Nietzsche, who wrote, "Man alone suffers so deeply that he had to invent laughter." Nietzsche saw humor as an act of rebellion, a way for human beings to look directly at their suffering and still say yes to life. To laugh in the face of pain is to refuse defeat. This paradox lies at the heart of the human condition. We are aware of our mortality, our limitations, our inevitable losses. We live in a world that can feel indifferent, even cruel, and yet somehow we find ways to smile. Humor becomes the proof of our endurance. It is, in a sense, a form of spiritual resistance. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust, observed that even in concentration camps, people found moments of laughter. Not because life was good, but because laughter was the only way to assert their humanity against a world that tried to strip it away. He wrote, "Humor was another of the soul's weapons in the fight for self-preservation." In that sense, laughter is not an escape from pain. It is a declaration of meaning in spite of it. Humor also reveals something deeper about the absurd. Albert Camus, in The Myth of Sisyphus, described human existence as a struggle between our desire for order and the universe's indifference. His solution was not despair, but defiance, to imagine Sisyphus, condemned to roll his stone up the hill for eternity, as smiling. Comedy, then, becomes the art of the absurd. To laugh at the senselessness of life is to rob it of its power to crush us. But laughter is not always defiance. Sometimes it's understanding. The Eastern philosopher Alan Watts spoke of humor as a form of enlightenment. To him, laughter was what happens when we realize the cosmic joke, that the universe is too vast, too mysterious, too unpredictable to ever make full sense. Once we accept that, we stop taking ourselves so seriously. We laugh, not out of denial, but out of awe. The philosopher's laughter and the comedian's laughter are not so different. Both arise from confronting the chaos of existence. Both find liberation in the recognition that pain, absurdity, and impermanence are woven into the fabric of life itself. The comedian laughs because the truth hurts too much. The philosopher laughs because he finally understands why it hurts. In this light, the sadness of funny people begins to make sense. They are the ones who have seen through the illusion, who have looked directly at the contradictions of life and decided to turn them into something bearable. Their humor is not frivolous, it is philosophical. Every joke about failure, despair, or love lost is an attempt to give form to the formless, to make the unbearable visible. And maybe that's why so many great comedians sound like philosophers when the laughter fades. Behind the timing and wordplay lies a worldview, one that accepts suffering as the price of awareness. They see what others overlook, that joy and sorrow are not separate states, but two halves of the same experience. To feel deeply is to laugh deeply. To laugh deeply is to know how fragile everything really is. Humor, then, is not the enemy of suffering. It is its transformation, a kind of spiritual judo, turning pain's own force against itself. Through laughter, we take back control from the absurd. We turn chaos into pattern, wound into wisdom. And maybe, in that moment, the laughter we hear is not just amusement, it's transcendence. It's the sound of the soul refusing to be silenced. It's a reminder that even when life collapses, something within us still finds rhythm, still finds irony, still finds a reason to keep going. Perhaps that is the ultimate truth behind funny people and their sadness. They have learned to dance with the absurd instead of fighting it. They have turned their despair into art, their fear into connection, their confusion into laughter. Because when we laugh, not at others, but at life itself, we are doing something profoundly human. We are saying, in our own quiet way, yes, the world is cruel and senseless, but I am still here. Acceptance, redemption, and the light behind the mask. There comes a moment, after the jokes fade and the laughter dies, when the silence that follows is no longer frightening, it's revealing. In that silence, something begins to shift. The pain that once felt unbearable begins to make sense. The mask that once hid suffering begins to shine with a strange kind of light. Because in the end, the paradox of the funny and the sad is not about contradiction, it's about transformation. Humor, at its core, is not the denial of pain, it is the reshaping of it. To make someone laugh, even when you are broken inside, is an act of love disguised as irony. It's the soul's way of saying, I still have something to give. When we look at those who've carried this paradox most visibly, Chaplin, Williams, Carey, we start to see a pattern. Each of them, in their own way, used humor to bridge the gap between suffering and understanding. They made the world laugh not because they were untouched by pain, but because they refused to let pain have the final word. Charlie Chaplin once said, "To truly laugh, you must be able to take your pain and play with it." That simple sentence contains a kind of redemption. Pain, when acknowledged, can destroy us, but when played with, when reshaped through humor, it becomes something else entirely: meaning. In this final understanding, laughter becomes sacred. Not shallow or escapist, but spiritual. Every joke told in the midst of despair is an act of rebellion against hopelessness. Every smile forced through tears is proof that the human spirit cannot be silenced by suffering. This is why the people who make us laugh often become our quiet saviors. They transform invisible anguish into something visible, something we can share. Their jokes become medicine, not because they erase pain, but because they make it communal. They turn loneliness into connection. They teach us that laughter and empathy are not separate forces. They are the same heartbeat expressed differently. There is a profound humility in this. To make others laugh while you are hurting is to put their comfort before your own. It's to use your pain as a tool for healing. It is the purest form of generosity because it gives light from a place of darkness. And yet, funny people are often misunderstood. We call them entertainers, performers, clowns. But in truth, they are philosophers in disguise. They confront the chaos of the world, distill it into something bearable, and offer it back to us with a smile. Their art is not merely humor, it's compassion in motion. Perhaps this is what Carl Jung meant when he said that one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The comedian does exactly that. They drag the darkness into the light, dress it up in absurdity, and make us laugh at it, so that we, too, can bear to face it. To laugh in the midst of despair is to understand that there is still something worth saving. To find joy amid sorrow is to realize that pain does not have the final authority. Laughter, then, is not the opposite of sadness. It is its evolution. It is sadness, reimagined as resilience. In the modern world, where irony often replaces sincerity, this understanding becomes even more vital. We live in a culture that rewards performance over truth, visibility over vulnerability. But behind every comedic mask lies a person yearning not just to be funny, but to be understood. And perhaps that is the greatest redemption of all. To be seen, not as the character we perform, but as the person we truly are. Acceptance begins there. When the comedian stops running from their sadness, when they realize that laughter and pain are not enemies but partners, something miraculous happens. Humor becomes healing, not just for the audience, but for the one telling the joke. The act of laughter transforms from escape into embrace. And maybe that is what every sad clown has been trying to tell us all along, that it's okay to hurt, that it's okay to laugh while we hurt, and that both can exist without canceling each other out. Life, in its strange duality, demands both tears and laughter to make sense. In the end, the sadness inside funny people is not a flaw to be pitied, it's the source of their beauty. Their pain is what gives their humor depth. Their struggle is what makes their laughter real. They are not broken. They are proof that the human spirit is capable of transforming darkness into light. So when we laugh, whether at a joke, a story, or a fleeting moment of absurdity, we are participating in something profound. We are acknowledging the paradox that defines us all, that joy and sorrow are not separate, but intertwined. That laughter is, perhaps, the most honest expression of hope we have left. And as the film draws to a close, one final truth lingers, not as a conclusion, but as an invitation. The people who make us laugh do not do so because they are unscarred. They do so because they have learned how to turn their scars into songs. They remind us that even in the deepest sadness, there is still rhythm, still beauty, still a reason to keep smiling. Because in the end, the world does not break those who can laugh. It only reveals how deeply they have already loved.